Okay. We will call to order this meeting of the Franklin Municipal Planning Commission, our meeting of April the 22nd, 2021. We will start off with a roll call agenda. Roll call of members present, starting with Commissioner Allen, Commissioner Franks,
Present.
Commissioner Harrison,
Present.
Commissioner Lindsay's here, Commissioner McLemore,
Present.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Mann,
I'm present. Sorry.
okay, Commissioner Orr,
Present.
Alderman Peterson,
Here.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Present.
All present and accounted for. Item number one, the consideration of resolution 2021-84, a resolution declaring that the Franklin Municipal Planning Commission shall meet on April 22nd, 2021, and conduct its essential business by electronic means rather than being required to gather a quorum of the members physically present in the same location, because it is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. We'll go to public comment. Kelly, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this item?
If there's anyone who wishes to speak, please unmute yourself or hit *6. No comment?
No comments. Okay, I will entertain a motion for this resolution. Again, our usual procedure, identify yourself by name as you make your motion and second.
Move for approval.
Alma,
Alma.
thank you, Alma. And second,
Second, Nick.
thank you, Nick. You have a motion and a second. Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
Thank you. Announcement for limited public access. The Franklin Municipal Planning Commission meeting will limit physical access in the meeting room due to current limitations on public gatherings to prevent further spread of COVID-19 and to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the City of Franklin officials, staff, and citizens. Accommodations have been made to ensure that the public is able to participate in this meeting. The public may participate in the following ways: watch the meeting on Franklin TV or the City of Franklin website. You may watch the live stream through the City of Franklin Facebook and YouTube accounts. You can call in to the conference meeting at 1-312-626-6799. Meeting ID is 989-9601-9303. And the password is 854623. Callers will be unmuted and given the opportunity to comment during the meeting at specific times. The public could email comments to planningintake@franklintn.gov to be provided in full to the commission and included in the minutes, but not read aloud in their entirety during the meeting. Emailed comments were accepted until 12 p.m. noon on the day before the meeting. Limited viewing will be available in the lobby at City Hall for up to 10 persons, but in-person comment in the boardroom will not be available. Next item is our approval of minutes. Consideration of approval of the March 25th, 2021 Franklin Municipal Planning Commission minutes. I entertain a motion for approval.
Move for approval.
Scott.
A second, Ann.
Okay, Scott made the motion and Ann a second. By roll call, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay votes aye. Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
Thank you. Here's some comments on items not on the agenda. This is a time in our meeting where we open for Franklin citizens to be heard on items that are not included on this agenda. As provided by law, the Franklin Municipal Planning Commission shall make no decisions or consideration of actions based on those citizen comments, except to refer the matter to the planning director for administrative consideration or to schedule the matter for planning commission consideration at a later date. Are there any citizen comments at this point, Kelly?
No comments at this time.
Thank you. The next is a vote to place non-agenda items on the agenda. The non-agenda process by design is reserved for emergency instances. Non-agenda items shall be considered only upon the unanimous approval of all of the Planning Commission members. Next item is approval. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, would you go back to announcements, please?
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay.
I just have.
Yes. Kelly, please.
Why, thank you. I just have one announcement tonight, and that's that the executive order that has allowed us to conduct virtual meetings ends next week, and we are anticipating returning to in-person meetings for the month of May. And we will be following the CDC guidelines and working through those details so that we are ensuring a safe in-person meeting experience. So we will be updating you on that once we have more information. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
How did that happen? Okay. The next item is consideration of items 4, 5, and number 14 on the consent agenda. Is there a motion for those, for that item, those items?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Alma
Scott-
seconds.
Scott with a motion for approval and Alma is second. These are items that will not be discussed. So we will proceed with roll call vote. Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay votes aye. Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
Okay, so we go to item number 6. Consideration of resolution 2021-26, a resolution to adopt an Envision Franklin Plan amendment for the properties located between Sawyer Road and Linwood Way, known as map 036 parcels 04000, 04100, 04200, and 04803 to change the design concept from conservation subdivision to multifamily residential. So I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Buckley property is located north of Linwood Way along Sawyer Road. It borders rural properties in the county and low-density residential in the city of Brentwood. The proposed plan amendment would change the design concept from conservation subdivision to multifamily residential. Introducing multifamily uses in this undeveloped corner of the city limits would create an abrupt change in massing, scale, and density and not provide an adequate transition to the surrounding properties. When comparing this proposal against the plan amendment criteria established by Envision Franklin, the staff does not believe that a change is warranted and believes that single-family residential should remain the primary use of the site, where the supporting mix of duplexes and big houses as Envision Franklin recommends. Another major concern is the limited access to the site. Sawyer Road is an unimproved county road, and the viability of a second access point onto Linwood Way has not been determined. Either way, the limited access does not lend itself well to high-density residential uses. The applicant requested a deferral to the May Planning Commission meeting. The staff does not think additional time will affect our recommendation on a request to change the design concept to multifamily residential. So staff is recommending disapproval of resolution 2021-26. And we did receive some additional correspondence that Kelly Dannenfelser would like to bring to your attention.
Thank you, Andrew. We received 2 letters in opposition to this application. One of them is from the city of Brentwood, which we provided to our Board of Mayor and Aldermen and is in your packet for this meeting. The other is from the Tremont Estates HOA. Both support Envision Franklin as the current policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there public comment on this item? Kelly?
No callers?
There are no callers. Thank you. So I'll turn it over now to a presentation by the applicant.
Thank you. This is Greg Gamble, representing the applicant tonight. We are requesting deferral of this item. Want to let you know that at the last joint conceptual workshop, when we presented the master plan, we did hear you. You asked for lower intensity. You asked for less density. You asked for smaller development footprint. And since our last meeting, we have been contemplating a new development plan. We are very interested in the new zoning ordinance category for continuum of care, which allows for senior living. And this would allow us to provide a much smaller development footprint, lower intensity, and less traffic trips generated, less impact on schools, obviously. That use, even though it is considered institutional in the zoning ordinance, is not considered institutional in the Envision Franklin. In Envision Franklin, land use policy such as multifamily is still required. And we would like to request a deferral to the May 27th Planning Commission meeting to give us just a few more days, weeks to prepare that master plan so that we can show you the intention for that new plan with lower intensity. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this item?
I'd like to.
I'm sorry, Jimmy, you cut out on me. Could you come back again? You're still on mute.
Okay, I got you now.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to defer, please.
This is Scott. I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion by Jimmy Franks and a second
Is
by
there a
Scott.
date? Is there a date that you'd
A
like
date,
to
sorry?
defer?
To the May 27th.
I concur.
Deferral to May 27th and Scott. Okay. So you have a proper motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I have a question. So this deferral would still, if I'm hearing correctly, has this, I guess this would go to the applicant. Have these changes already been discussed with staff? Would this change the staff's recommendation? I guess actually this would go back to.
It's my understanding this would go back to staff. We do have additional submittals between now and the next Planning Commission meeting, and would continue to meet with staff and include them in those discussions regarding the new plan.
Commissioner Allen, if they do seek to do a senior assisted living or independent living in a multifamily form, then a change in design concepts from conservation subdivision to multifamily would still be needed. You know, I haven't discussed this at length with our DRT, but it's unlikely that would change our recommendation.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we will vote on the motion on the floor. Commissioner Allen,
No.
Commissioner Franks,
Yes, please. Thank you.
and Commissioner Harrison,
Yes.
and chair votes no. Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Commissioner Alderman Peterson,
No.
Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. Item number 7 is consideration of a 6-month extension of the Township PUD subdivision site plan section 2 to November the 28th, 2021. Turn it over for staff presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is the first of 2 options to request a extension of their site plan expiration date. The project was vested in February 2015, and the site plan that they're requesting an extension on is section 2 of this site plan. The reasons they cited for requiring the extension was that the section 1 took longer than anticipated to get out of the ground. And also there's been some changes in their project management team. So that is why they're requesting a 6-month extension, which would take their new expiration date to November 28th, 2021. Staff's recommending approval.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone on the phone lines that would like to speak to this item?
No callers.
No callers, thank you. Turn it over for a presentation by the applicant.
I'm not sure if they're on.
Okay. Okay, we will go to a motion. Is there a motion on this item?
Scott, move for approval for the extension.
Alma seconds.
Thank you. Scott made the motion and Alma seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to roll call vote. Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay votes aye. Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
Thank you. That item passes. Item number 8. This is the first of four items that are all related. Consideration of resolution 2021-70, a resolution adopting a plan of services for the annexation of 8 properties west of Lewisburg Pike and south of Goose Creek Bypass by the city of Franklin, Tennessee. I'll turn it over for staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. The applicant or the plan of services outlines how infrastructure will need to be provided to serve the 8 properties requesting annexation that consist of approximately 244 acres. The property is located within the City of Franklin water service area. Because of the distance, reclaimed water will not be required to be extended to the property. The properties are located within the Goose Creek Basin and the Hillsborough, Burwood, and Thompson Station Utility District service area. Access to the property shall be provided via Lewisburg Pike. As properties develop, road improvements and road extensions shall be required in accordance with Connect Franklin. Major collector roadway is designated across property per the City of Franklin Major Thoroughfare Plan, and no additional manpower or equipment is necessary for either fire, police, or sanitation and environmental services. So staff recommends approval of resolution 2021-70. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Kelly, is there anyone on the phone who wishes to speak to this item?
No callers for this item.
No callers, thank you. I'll turn it over for a presentation by the applicant.
Hi, thank you. This is Greg Gamble representing the applicant. And tonight we do not have a presentation on the plan of services, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion for this item?
Scott, move for approval.
Alma seconds.
We have a proper motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will move to roll call vote. Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay votes aye. Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Aye.
Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Alderman number 9, consideration of resolution 2021-71, a resolution to annex 8 properties west of Lewisburg Pike and south of Goose Creek Bypass, consisting of 244.08 acres located west of Lewisburg Pike and south of Goose Creek Bypass, and adjoining the city limits within the southern part of the Franklin Urban Growth Boundary, the UGB. Turn it over for staff presentation.
Thank you. This property falls into the Goose Creek drainage basin, and this area was identified as a short-term growth area in the 2018 growth study. The subject properties requesting annexation are within the conservation subdivision design concept as defined by Envision Franklin. It is the intention of the applicant to develop the property into single-family and attached residential lots. Both the rezoning and development plan for the subject property are also included on tonight's agenda. Staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Kelly, is there anyone on the phone who wishes to speak to this item?
Yes, caller 4523, please unmute yourself.
Caller, could you please give us your name and your address, and please hold your comments to 2 minutes, please.
I'm sorry, my name is Brian Davis. I was applied to the wrong number. I want to speak towards ordinance 2021-09, rezone of the 28.91 acres.
Okay, that's not this item. Okay, we'll cover that item here shortly if you'll just hang with us. So I'll turn it over. And no other callers on this item? Okay. I'll turn it over for presentation by the applicant.
Thank you. This is Greg Gamble, again representing the applicant, and we do not have a presentation tonight on the annexation request, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you, Greg. So do we have a motion on this item?
Alma moves for approval.
Second, Jimmy.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the item?
But we might at least show the map of it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amy. Any other comments or questions on that one? on this item? Okay, let's proceed with the roll call vote. Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay votes aye. Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Aye.
Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. Item number 10 is a consideration of ordinance 2021-08, an ordinance to zone 244.08 acres to planned PD 2.09 district, scenic corridor overlay SCO district, Hillcrest overlay HHO district for property located west of Lewisburg Pike and south of Goose Creek Bypass, the South Vale PUD subdivision. I'll turn it over for staff presentation.
Thank you. The proposed zoning district, a planned district with the entitlements of 2.09 dwelling units per acre, is to accommodate the proposed South Vale PUD subdivision. And Vision Franklin places the subject parcels into the subdivision design concept, which states new development should preserve a minimum of 50% open space, strategically targeted towards scenic vistas, greenways, pastures, trails, and woodlands, or other uses that maintain scenic character, protect habitat value, and contribute to the quality of life for residents. The applicant is proposing 512 total dwelling units through a variety of single-family, duplex, and multiplex building types for a density of 2.09 dwelling units per acre. The associated development plan also preserves the recommended 50% open space as defined by Envision Franklin. Staff recommends approval of ordinance 2021-08. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly, is there anyone on the phone lines who wishes to speak on this item?
We have one caller on the line. Please unmute yourself. 4523.
Okay, now Brian, give us your name and address and hold your comments to 2 minutes, please.
He's still not wanting this.
It's the next
still,
one.
He's 09.
It's the next one.
I'm wanting to speak to ordinance 2021-09.
09, okay, I'm sorry. So there's no other callers on this item then?
That would be item 12 on the agenda.
Right, okay. Okay, I'll turn it over then to a presentation by the applicant.
Thank you. My name is Greg Gamble and representing the applicant Ford Custom Homes, Ford Classic Homes, excuse me. And I'd like to share my screen if that's okay. Thank you. This property shown here in kind of grayed out over on the west side is what we're discussing tonight. But wanted to point out the original intent of the annexation and development plan of this property was to be tied to the Southbrook PUD. The Southbrook PUD was approved in February of 2020 and included both the north and south side of Stream Valley. So the single family residential area here to the north called the Meadows and the villages just to the south of Stream Valley. The overall site area is 243 acres approximately. Of that, around 150 acres is being set aside as open space. That's about 61%. And much of this open space area, as you can see here, is within the HHO. So this is a pretty significant hilltop that's being preserved as a part of the restrictions of development for HHOs. The development area itself is about 39%. Within that, we're proposing 169 single-family detached homes, 31 duplex buildings, and 60 multiplex buildings. This has been reduced since the joint conceptual workshop. The number of multiplex building has come down about 14. We are proposing a total of 512 homes. This includes a mixed income neighborhood multi-generational homes that will certainly complement the not only the workforce, but the growing commercial that is proposed for the Berry Farms area. We're proposing a mix of architecture, including detached single-family homes. Ford is currently building not only in West Haven, but also in Berry Farms, and would like to bring those really Franklin architecture focused designs to this area of South Vale. Also contemplated are the multiplex buildings, as shown here, to look as though they're one single family house, but could accommodate, in this instance, 3 condominium buildings for new homeowners. The multiplex buildings are designed primarily along and fronting Lewisburg Pike. These are required to be a distance of 80 feet from the right-of-way line of Lewisburg, and not the existing right-of-way line, but the future right-of-way line. So this master plan does contemplate the future widening of Lewisburg Pike, and starts the setback really at that future point. We have 3 phases within our proposed development, including the north area is shown here, which is a mixture of single-family homes and the multiplex buildings. You can see here over on the right side, the existing right-of-way line of Lewisburg Pike, the future right-of-way line of Lewisburg Pike, and then the 80-foot scenic corridor setback to the homes. We're proposing that the multiplex buildings along Lewisburg Pike be grouped in sets of 3, 4, or 5. So this would be an area here where we would have a grouping of 4. And then there would be a transition of open space to the southern neighborhood. Now, I've rotated this so it fits on the screen a little bit better. The previous plan that you saw is really kind of oriented more in this direction. So Lewisburg Pike here along the bottom. Again, you start to see here the rhythm of the homes and the breaking up of the open space areas along Lewisburg Pike. So they're not soldiered down the street. There is a rhythm that's established, but it's more of an organic rhythm, and it relates to, directly across the street to the villages of Southbrook and the multiplex buildings that are there. The single family detached homes are alley loaded behind. Here we have 2 access points in off of Lewisburg Pike that tie directly to our amenity area, which I'll describe in more detail with the development plan. The third area is to the very south. This area here also is a mixture of multiplex buildings, duplexes, and single-family detached homes. Along the south, we have a collector road that will extend one day in the future all the way to Goose Creek Bypass, really aligning in the future with Macklemore. But this is the start of that future collector road. You may recall from recent conversations as well that this alignment here ties directly across to either a flyover at I-65 or to a potential new interchange at I-65 just south of the Ramsey facility. So this contemplates a lot of big picture and future planning that the city engineering and planning department have put together relative to this area of South Franklin. With that, I will yield back and answer any questions that you may have regarding the rezoning request. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Greg. Do we have a motion on this item?
Motion to approve.
Second, Mike.
So a motion by Jimmy and a second by Michael Orr. So a proper motion and second, is there discussion on this item? Seeing none, we will go to a roll call vote. Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Franks?
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison?
Aye.
Chair Lindsay votes aye. Commissioner McLemore?
Aye.
Commissioner Mann?
Aye.
Commissioner Orr?
Aye.
Alderman Peterson?
Aye.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
The motion passes. Item number 11, consideration of resolution 2021-72, a resolution approving a development plan for South Vale PUD subdivision for 8 properties located west of Lewisburg Pike and south of Goose Creek Bypass. I'll turn it over for staff presentation.
Thank you. The South Vale PUD plan proposes 512 dwelling units on 332 lots, consisting of single-family duplex and multiplex building types, with both 3 and 4 dwelling units per building for the multiplexes. The plan further breaks down to 196 single-family lots and 136 attached residential lots. The plan as proposed incorporates the recommendations and guiding principles of the conservation subdivision design concepts by maintaining both 50% open space and preserving the hillsides and establishing deep setbacks along Lewisburg Pike. The plan has a total of 13.78% of single-family alley loaded lots that are less than 40 feet in lot width. You'll remember a couple of years ago, we did a study on the number of single-family lots that could be below the 40-foot threshold. The new development is within close proximity to a property that is on the National Register of Historic Places, and the architecture directly across from the property should be particularly sensitive to that local historic resource. Staff recommends approval with conditions of resolution 2021-72, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Okay, Kelly, is there anyone on the phone lines who wishes to speak to this item?
No callers.
There are no callers for this item. So I'll turn it over for presentation by the applicant.
Thank you. And I do have a brief presentation if I can share my screen. Thank you. So as mentioned, there are new guidelines regarding conservation subdivisions and lot size. And this plan has been revised to follow those guidelines. We also want to point out the historic Sugar Hill property that was just mentioned that's located right here. And special consideration needs to be given to the architectural design of the homes that are directly across the street from that so that there's compatibility. You'll notice that this is one area in particular where we have spaced out the homes further along Lewisburg Pike, giving greater separation. Again, homes along Lewisburg Pike, even going all the way up to Mac Hatcher, didn't necessarily follow a prescribed setback or side setback, or there's a kind of more of organic rhythm. And that's really what we're looking to achieve here along Lewisburg Pike, is kind of replicate and bring a lot of that organic rhythm of architecture along Lewisburg Pike to this lower section. As we look to this slide here, this area of South Vale will have its own HOA. It'll be a separate HOA from Southbrook. However, there will be amenities that will be shared with Southbrook, and this park will be one of those. It's again approximately 125 acres. It will be designed with walking trails and hiking trails. There are 2 roads that access into the site from Lewisburg Pike here in phase 1 that will access the amenity area in this location. This will also be the trailhead for much of the hiking and mountain bike activities. This amenity building here, again, located on access with those entrance drives coming in. We'll have a swimming pool behind. We'll have ample parking for guests who are not only coming to the pool, but want to utilize the trails and walking. This will truly be designed as a garden site. The building is designed in very traditional Middle Tennessee architecture with back porches and verandas looking out over into the pool area. This building will include a fitness area, gathering space for community, for HOA meetings, and community events. As mentioned, this proposed PUD is really in 3 phases. The first phase is really focused here in the middle. And the reason for the focus to the middle is that these sewer lines here will be or already constructed. So this is the Bushnell PUD here on the south, just south of the historic Sugar Hill property, and the Southbrook development that's under construction now just to the north of that. So these manholes either already exist or will be constructed here in the very near future. So the first phase of development that you'll see is right here in this kind of middle area and would include the amenities. The second phase would be to the north. So when Meadows of Southbrook is constructed, a sewer line will need to tie into Berry Farms at Chadwell, and that will open up the opportunity for phase 2 to connect. Phase 3 is a little bit further into the future and would require a future sewer line that would tie into the south side of Stream Valley. There is a pretty significant infrastructure improvement that's being planned by Southbrook. They're going to be adding 6 turn lanes at this intersection, building it out to its full potential. There's currently an offsite roadway improvement agreement in place with the city of Franklin and Ford for the construction of this intersection. There will be a new traffic signal installed with phase 1, but we have to meet the traffic warrants first before that traffic signal goes live. But that traffic signal would be located at Stream Valley's main entrance here. At each of the project access points, which were predetermined in collaboration with the City of Franklin Engineering Department and TDOT for spacing on Lewisburg Pike, which is a major arterial. But at each one of these points here, there will be left and right turn lanes that are going to be added along Lewisburg Pike. That additional right-of-way, in addition to the right-of-way expansion for Lewisburg Pike, is already contemplated as a part of the development plan and has been set aside as reservation for future development. So with that, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you, Greg. Do we have a motion on this item?
Alma moves for approval with staff recommendations to BOMA.
With staff conditions?
Yes,
Okay,
conditions.
thank you, Alma. Is there a second?
Scott, second.
Is there any discussion on this item?
This is Nick. I do have a question. Greg, if you could pull up that screen you just had up there that shows the overall plan. There was that cul-de-sac right there that fronts Lewisburg Pike across from the historic property. I think you've answered this before, but I apologize, so I'll ask it again. What's the reason for that and having to be visible from Lewisburg Pike?
Sure, let me zoom in on that just a little bit here for you. Can clear that blue line off. So when a home, whether it be a single family detached home or in this particular instance, a multiplex building fronts a public street and an arterial road, which is Lewisburg Pike, the property lines are required to go all the way to the right-of-way. Now, this will be open space that will be maintained by the homeowners association because these are multiplex buildings. But a Muse Alley section, which is a little bit wider of a section, is required because of fire access or for fire access, for making sure that there is clear access and wide enough access for those fire vehicles. So the maximum length of this Muse is 800 feet. Now, these are about 650, but if we removed that cul-de-sac, they would extend beyond the fire department's recommended 800-foot length. So we have introduced a cul-de-sac here.
Well,
that-
Greg, I'm sorry, can I stop you real fast? Just because I think you guys took the cul-de-sac out with your latest revision, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Oh, Amy, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I was looking through the plans and I didn't see the cul-de-sacs. I think that was based on our discussion
I
last.
think
Yeah.
you're exactly right. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure that Commissioner Mann knew that you guys did hear, you guys heard his concern and did change the plan to eliminate the cul-de-sac. And now they believe they have houses that have their side facades facing Lewisburg, which is allowed in the ordinance. And there is a street that runs there. So they've eliminated the cul-de-sac and worked within the parameters of the zoning ordinance.
I'm
So
embarrassed, and what would I do without you? Thank
That's
you.
okay. All right.
So does the street then still exist? I mean, does the street still tie back? But
Yes.
it's just the removal of the cul-de-sac?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, I thought I remember we talked about that last month, so.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And for what it's worth, the documents that were part of the package, I think reflect that, but that's why I was a little bit confused with the presentation today.
Mhm.
Okay,
They did.
great. Okay, any other discussion or questions?
I guess the only question I have is for the park. Does that allow public access? I think I saw it on there, but just want to double check.
It's planned right now as a private park to be privately maintained by the homeowners association. So there's not an intention of having a public access easement over it for parkland dedication purposes.
Yeah. So like, for example, if I know you said that the neighborhood across the street will share some of the amenities on there.
Yes.
Say if you're one neighborhood over and you happen to be going through a walk through that neighborhood, you'd be able to walk over there, or is it going to be kind of like, hey, residents only sort of thing?
I'm not, if there was a problem and there was a nuisance, something that was that needed to be managed by the HOA, I'm sure the HOA would act on that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, we will proceed with roll call vote. We have a motion for approval with staff conditions. Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay votes aye. Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
Great, thank you. That motion passes. The next item is item number 12, consideration of ordinance 2021-09, an ordinance to rezone 28.91 acres from agricultural AG district to neighborhood commercial NC district for the property located south of Goose Creek Bypass and east of Goose Creek Drive. Turn it over for staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is requesting to rezone 28.91 acres from agricultural to neighborhood commercial for the property located south of Goose Creek Bypass and east of Goose Creek Drive. Envision Franklin places this parcel in the neighborhood commercial design concept, which states that new development contain a mix of active uses at key intersections that serve surrounding residential concentrations. These centers must be key intersections that must be compatible with and contribute to neighborhood character and livability. Envision Franklin further states that new buildings should engage and define the street edge with landscaping, pedestrian walkways, and street furnishings to allow for safe and comfortable movement of pedestrians. The proposed rezoning request is consistent with the recommendations of Envision Franklin. No corresponding site plan or development plan have been submitted for review at this time. There are two project considerations for this proposal relating to the realignment of Goose Creek Drive should this develop in the future, as well as impact statements at site plan level. With that in mind, staff recommends approval of 2021-09 and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Kelly, do we still have someone on the line for this item, right? Brian, are you still with us, Brian? Please state your name.
I
and
am.
address. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
My name is Brian Davis. I live at 115 Gosling Drive in Goose Creek Estates in Franklin. Our subdivision borders this parcel of property. I represent our neighborhood with issues related to development and specifically the 20 homes that are within the 500-foot distance that border this property on the southern edge of the property, one of which includes my residence. We would like to request as a neighborhood a deferral of this rezoning for 30 to 60 days so that we would have time to be able to work with Mr. Gamble, the landowner in the city, to work through some items that we would like to have attached to this rezoning. We realize as a neighborhood that they're not going to grow corn and soybeans in this field forever. We know it's going to be developed at some point. I just soon see it develop, the zoning changed earlier, so we know what we have to deal with. But we do have some items that we'd like to be able to work out with the landowner. Our request for deferral would revolve around timing of notices. Our earliest receipt of a notice within the 500-foot distance was on 12/10 on a Saturday, which is 12 days out. There was no neighborhood rezoning request signs or public notice signs posted on the property until yesterday, just the day before the meeting, for others to learn about. Most importantly, as he had just said, the current landowner does not have any master plan submitted. There's no plan, from what I understand, from Mr. Gamble coming soon. So a deferral would not harm the landowner. It would not harm the city. It would allow us some time to work a few items out. I did send out an email to all the commissioners on Tuesday with this request and several items. The stipulations, some of the stipulations we'd like to be able to work out would be some input on the realignment of Goose Creek Drive with some continuity with our neighborhood, some wider setback and buffer area on the southern border of this property, which borders our subdivision and approximately 13 homes along that border. Some heavy, high, and low landscape buffers. Light pollution is very important to us, and light glare specifically, trying to reduce any effects to our neighborhood that would diminish our quality of life that we've enjoyed now for 24 years. Noise pollution related to service drives, dumpsters, loading docks, ancillary structures that may be pushed back to the back of this property right up against our neighborhood. Again, we're not opposed to this property being rezoned and don't know that this may not be the proper zoning for this, but we've enjoyed a good quality of life in this neighborhood for 24 years. Quite simply put, we were here before all this started, and it was just like some extra consideration about the effects of this particular zoning to our neighborhood, and would like to be able to work out these handful of items so that we could get ahead of the curve, have it placed as part of the zoning for this property, and not have to continually fight it through the master planning and specific site plans. But we would like to work with the landowner to achieve these goals. I appreciate you allowing us to speak.
All right, thank you, Brian. I'll turn it over now to a presentation by the applicant.
Thank you. And I'll share my screen just quickly. This is the property located on Goose Creek Bypass, just across the street from Berry Farms Town Center and just north of Goose Creek Estates. The farm is currently, the property is currently farmed, usually as row crops, but it is currently zoned agriculture. Envision Franklin identifies the property as neighborhood commercial. And Aubrey and Michelle Preston, the owners of the property, are requesting a rezoning tonight to neighborhood commercial. They do not have a master plan on this property today. The request is simply to align the zoning with Envision Franklin. With that, the new zoning ordinance does have some very rigorous standards when commercial development or neighborhood commercial is developed adjacent to existing single-family residential. I don't believe that rezonings can be conditionally approved. As always, we are happy to meet with neighbors. That is a very, very important part of a design process, especially here in the city of Franklin. We want to make sure that we have neighbor input. That being said, we do not have a master plan or a site plan for this property today. The Prestons are simply asking for the property to be rezoned in alignment with Envision Franklin to this neighborhood commercial design category. Neighborhood commercial allows for up to about 2 stories, I believe, and staff may be able to confirm that. So it is a lower intensity development than what's across the street at Berry Farms, which allows for a little bit higher intensity and maybe even higher building heights. We do understand in the new zoning ordinance that buffers, landscape buffers and distance buffers are required adjacent to existing single family. So those need to be respected. Once the property is rezoned and as the site plan or future development is considered, we plan on having meetings with our adjacent neighbors in Goose Creek Estates. I think that it makes sense, as mentioned by the caller. They have lived there in this neighborhood for quite some time. We also understand that there's a concern regarding the access from their neighborhood onto Goose Creek Estates. And this property could certainly be a part of solving some problems that they have on getting access out onto Goose Creek bypass. So there could be a win-win here for everyone, but tonight we're simply asking for the rezoning of the property to align with Envision Franklin. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, do we have a motion on this item?
Motion to approve.
Alma seconds.
So Jimmy, your motion is to recommend approval to the BOMA?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And Alma second?
Yes.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, I have some discussion, some questions and maybe some comments also. I heard whenever we were talking about this, it says neighborhood commercial is active uses at key intersections. I do not see how this is a key intersection. I don't even see an intersection. I mean, I see the intersection down there on Goose Creek and Lewisburg, but this is really not adjoining that. And also, I want to say that, remember, we have actually in the Board of Mayor and Aldermen is approved the Chadwell property that is on the, I guess, east side of this. And all along there, the things that are proposed are open space, a recreational open space, and maybe detention ponds or something. So I am unsure how a neighborhood commercial would fit in with this. I'd just like to have some staff comments or some other people too.
Alderman Peterson, this particular site has been designated as a commercial site since the 2004 land use plan was adopted. So it precedes what Envision Franklin says about commercial locations. It's just been designated as commercial for a long time. And it is
I've seen that
near Interstate 65 and other roadways.
Well, and I don't want this answered, but just for curiosity, I'm wondering, how do you get on and off going on into this? I mean, you know, from Berry Farms on the other side of the, you know, north of this, as opposed to east of it. Obviously, they have some large intersections there where they connect to Goose Creek, but I am unsure how, and as I said, I'm not asking for any answers. I'm unsure how anybody could get on and off the highway right in this area is just something to think about. The other thing that I'm very concerned about is Goose Creek Estates and having to move their entrance. And I saw something where it was recommended, and I can't find it now though, that it was recommended to have just kind of a little swervy thing to connect, no, to be across from, oh gosh, I've forgotten. It's kind of not where Moss Lane comes in from the north
Captain
side.
Freeman.
Thank you very much. Yes. And to think about how that would work out here in, with what's already here, I really can't see how that would be workable.
Would you mind if I shared my screen one more time? I think I can
Please.
address some of these questions. Thank you. So to address that, this is a signalized intersection and this is a signalized intersection. There's also a connection contemplated to Chadwell. So when we contemplate neighborhood commercial at major intersections, I believe that we're talking about these two intersections here. They're meeting local street geometry. There is a way, I'm just drawing it as from point A to point B, but there is a way to connect Goose Creek Estates back to a signalized intersection for better flow of travel going both directions here, if that could be contemplated. And again, the property owners are open to having these discussions with the neighborhood, but I hope that answers some of your questions, that the major intersections that we're talking about are the two signalized intersections here, and then the connection back to Chadwell in this location.
And I did not look back at Chadwell. I looked to see what they have proposed all along that, again, that eastern or side, and everything. And every bit of that does not look like it's going to be residential. It looks like it's going to be either a detention pond or recreation or just open space back there. So I'm not seeing where you said there's a potential connection to Berry Farms, but I don't remember. I did not have a chance to look back at that part of it. And now these others, are they signalized at this time? They're not, right?
They are.
Yeah.
Okay. I drove out there, but I, wasn't thinking about all the things that went with it. But
it will have access. This property will have access to 3 signals. So one here, and then one at the Chadwell's main access point. So three signalized intersections that this property would have access to.
And so all of them are separated far enough, along a major road. I remember that there are certain distances apart that they have to be. I did not have a chance to.
They're installed today. Yeah, those signals are installed today, interactive.
Okay. But now then, how about the Goose Creek Estates entrance?
Well, I will say that because this would be a commercial site plan, it has to come back in front of Planning Commission.
Yeah.
This would not be like a development plan where it would be staff level approved. So Planning Commission would see this again once a site plan is designed. And we know that there has to be buffer area adjacent to existing single family homes. More landscape would need to be installed and planted. I don't know the design solution for this area yet, other than it's a concern, and the Preston's property could be a solution to that.
And there will be opportunities for neighborhood meetings, right?
There aren't neighborhood meetings required, but we're certainly happy to meet with neighbors. It's a big part of what we do, just as residents in Franklin who are developing. It's good to meet with neighbors and talk with the neighbors for sure.
Okay, on this rezoning.
Can I ask one more thing and then I'll stop? I did not see any signs that said, rezoning on this. Maybe there was one, but I
Alderman
didn't
Martin,
see it.
I can speak to that. I personally put
Peterson,
out a
but-
sign this past Friday, April 16th. And then we received, I put it specifically at the intersection of Goose Creek Bypass and Goose Creek Drive, thinking the neighbors would be the most concerned about the new proposed rezoning. And then we received an email from you today saying that there were no signs. So I went out and checked, and that sign that I had placed there had been removed. So I
Okay.
actually put out 2 more signs along Goose Creek Bypass today. So I'm not really sure what happened to the original sign, but it was removed.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that there was not one because that is what I thought whenever I went out there today before lunch. Thank you. And I'll stop now.
Well, and that was the same thing. I'd called in also and asked about notifications and signs too. And I would like to thank planning for that because Kelly followed up with the question after we received that email from me too. Thank you, staff, for that.
And that was going to be my question as well. So you've answered it. Thank you.
And I would like to clarify the zoning ordinance requirement for public notice that is mailed. The requirement in the zoning ordinance is that public notice that is mailed is postmarked 15 days before the meeting date. So it may be received 12 days, 11 days, 13 days before the meeting. But what the requirement is the postmark date, because we can't control how long it takes for it to get to it. And that's based on a state law requirement.
What is the requirement for the signs? I've seen in other rezoning areas that the signs were there quite a bit longer than, as well, he said he put one in last Friday. That wasn't, a very long notice. That was a pretty short notice.
For rezonings, we try to place signs about a week before the meeting. It is not a state law requirement to place signs. It's a recommended notice that we place the signs. So we do that as a courtesy and place the signs about a week before the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none. We have a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. By roll call vote, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
No.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
The motion passes. Item number 13 is the Morton subdivision preliminary plat at 207 Fairground Street, creating 3 attached residential lots for 2 duplexes, 4 dwelling units, and 1 open space lot on 0.39 acres located west of Columbia Avenue and south of Fairground Street at 207 Fairground Street. I'll turn it over for staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of this preliminary plat is to subdivide the existing single-family residential lot into 3 attached residential lots and 1 open space lot. 1 duplex will be divided by floor horizontally, so this duplex will be contained on 1 lot. The other duplex will be split vertically, creating a lot for each half of the duplex. The property is zoned mixed residential, which supports the proposed attached residential lots. The architecture for future development must meet the requirements in the transitional features chapter of the zoning ordinance. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat with conditions. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly, is there anyone on the phone lines who wishes to speak on this item?
No callers.
No callers? Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over for presentation by the applicant. Is the applicant represented tonight?
He is. He might have a hard time unmuting.
Okay.
Adam, are you there? I I see that he's on. Ah, there he
There
is.
you are.
We cannot hear you. You are on here twice.
He has joined and rejoined multiple times.
Okay. We might be having some connection issues.
Do you mind if I call him and try and put him on speakerphone real quick?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, while we're waiting, I
Okay,
still could.
I've got Adam here.
Hey, guys, this is Adam Ballish as the applicant. I apologize. There seems to be some connection with my phone line, but I'm the applicant. I don't have a presentation prepared. I agree with all of staff's recommendations, and I'm trying to move forward for 2 duplexes, of which you will see a site plan and a final plat following this submittal. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank
Will
you,
that
Adam.
site plan come to the planning commission or just to staff?
I believe it's in an area of town where it would just, whoops. I believe it would come just to staff, Alderman Peterson.
And I never did get the 4th page on my Core Civic. I did get it. Thanks. When it was sent to me on email. Did anybody else see the 4th page?
I didn't either. I would appreciate if someone would send it to me if you could.
I can pull it up right now if you guys could bear with me just a second.
Okay, thank you, Amy.
Okay, let me get this moved down a little bit so you can see. So as you can see, here's the Fairground Street at the top. And what the applicant is proposing is that their lot 3 is a duplex that is contained on the lot. So the units will be a first floor and then a second floor lot. Lots 1 and 2 are another building. It's just that the lot line will slice through the duplex building. So it'll be a left and a right duplex. And the boxes are the setback lines, not necessarily the building footprints.
Thanks.
Are there any questions?
Okay. Do we have a motion on this item?
Move for approval.
You have a motion by Martha for approval.
And is that with conditions, Marcia?
With staff conditions, yes.
Thank you.
Approval.
Michael or second.
Thank you, Michael. So we have an approval with staff conditions. We have a proper motion and second. Is there discussion on this item? Seeing none, we will proceed with roll call vote. Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay votes aye. Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
The motion carries. Okay, item number 15. Consideration of ordinance 2021-07 and ordinance to amend chapter 23 of the zoning ordinance of the city of Franklin to redefine substantial damage and substantial improvement related to cumulative time frame and market value for properties located in the floodplain. Turn it over for staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. I was trying to share my screen. Can you make me active, Amy?
You should be able to.
Okay, there it goes.
It's set.
Okay, are you able to see my screen? Okay. Tonight, staff is presenting an amendment, proposed amendment that most of you are familiar with. We've been discussing this for about 6 months now. Ordinance 2021-07 would amend the cumulative timeframe for substantial damage and substantial improvement from 10 years down to 5 years, and would allow independent appraisals along with the option of the county assessment plus 15% as a way of determining market value. Staff will continue to discuss issues such as freeboard and parking in the floodway at a later date, but tonight this amendment is strictly for those two items, the cumulative time frame and independent appraisals. If approved by commission and board, this ordinance would go into effect January 1st, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanna. Kelly, is there anyone on the phone who wishes to speak to this item?
No callers.
Thank you. Okay, so since the city is the applicant, I'll call for a motion on this item.
Move for approval, Scott.
Is there a second?
Second. Peterson.
Did Ann? Okay, thank you, Ann. Is there any discussion? Well, I've got a statement or two to make. As I stated last month, I'm all over this requirement to allow the use of a professional appraiser to appraise the value of a property. It's a procedure that's advocated by FEMA. It's extensively discussed in their guidance documents. It's something that we as a city of Franklin ought to do. I remain convinced that the reduction from a 10-year cumulative time frame to a 5-year time frame still offers opportunity to continue to invest up to 50% of the value of a property every 5 years without bringing a non-compliant structure into compliance with the floodplain ordinance, and with just plain common sense, good standards, high standards that cities all over the country are striving to do, because it reduces risk, it reduces the cost of flood insurance, and I remain convinced that it's not a good thing for us to do. And so because of that, I will, in spite of my delight that we're switching to the allowance for an appraisal, an appraiser, I will not support the motion to recommend approval. So thank you. Any other comments?
Roger, could you, I'm sorry, back to what did you say about the 10 to 5 years? Make sure I understand that again, because I think I got the gist of that.
Anytime a structure experiences damage, in the case of flood damage, it can be damaged from a fire, it can be damaged from a tornado, but anytime you suffer damage from a structure that is in the floodplain, only located in the floodplain, the damages are tabulated, are cumulatively added up to determine whether or not the damages are 50% of the value of the structure or more. If it's more than 50% or more of the value of the structure, then you have to bring that structure into compliance with the floodplain ordinance. And that may be, the house may have been built before any firm maps were ever built, were ever adopted by the city. It may be an old house that's close to a creek. But in a lot of cases, those are repetitive loss properties. They don't just flood once. And let's see, when was the last time we had a flood in Franklin? Oh, yes, less than a month ago. And so it goes to the fact that when these properties are subject to flooding over and over again, that at some point you've got to say, we've got to bring that structure into compliance. It may be as simple as adding flood vents to the structure, or requiring a build back to use flood resistant materials. Or it could be that the house needs to be elevated 2 feet or 4 feet or 6 feet. I had one in Nashville that needed to be elevated 14 feet. And finally it was just torn down. I had another owner in Nashville that had suffered 4 floods in 5 years of period because he backed up to a flood prone creek. So at some point, these structures that are not compliant need to be made compliant, or they need to be subject to, maybe they're a candidate for a tear down and demolition, which we've done 400 times in Nashville. We have another 100 houses that are on our list just in the last 4 weeks. It's our desire to take those people out, because ultimately it may not be. A homeowner typically will get tired of this, and he'll sell it to some unsuspecting new resident of Franklin who's moved here because his grandchildren live here. And then he's astounded to find out that he, like some of his neighbors on Ewingville, had water lapping at their front door thresholds about 4 weeks ago. So those that are subject to those floods just experience it again. So that's, Marcia, does that answer your question?
Most definitely, thank you.
Any other questions I'll answer in a shorter.
Can we hear some justification from staff on why they want to go from 10 to 5? How are they getting to that number? They must have some reasoning behind it.
When the city of Franklin was going through the process of adopting the new ordinance, these changes were put into place. Previous ordinance did not have these stipulations. And so we had been acting on those as a consistent manner of enforcement, but it wasn't written into the ordinance. So with the 2019 ordinance, we did write it in. There was a substantial amount of citizen worry and feeling like they wouldn't be able to invest into their properties with it being a 10-year time period. And so we had meetings with staff, with the aldermen, with commissioners, with citizens, discussing these topics. And So that's where it came from. There's a real push from the citizens to go to the 5-year rather than 10-year.
So Roger, wouldn't the 10-year essentially be protecting a homeowner from themselves?
That's essentially what it does. It creates a longer period of accumulation, and because at the point I made a minute ago, you can spend 49% of the value of your structure every 5 years without triggering the requirement to bring it into compliance. So the 10 years is a longer period. The more you do to the house over the span of 10 years, whether it's something like repairing some flood damage or whether it's adding a new master suite or a new kitchen to the house, all of those, the cost of those all add up to the cumulative value of either damage, repair, or improvement. So yeah, the 10 years creates a longer period. Now in Nashville, for example, a year ago, we celebrated the 10th anniversary of the May 2010 flood. So all of those damages that were incurred during the flood rolled off the back end of that period. So they're back to square one, they're back to zero. And that's what would happen in this case, except that you'd go back to zero every 5 years instead of every 10 years. There's a city in Florida that I stumbled on some time back that had a 1-year period. Well, that's insane. The city of Memphis, at the point when I was involved in writing some ordinances, they had a life of the structure clause in theirs that said that those dollars never roll off, that is over the life of the structure, every improvement you make goes toward that cumulative value. And once you're over 50%, then you got to get into compliance.
If I could make 2 comments. I will not name the location, but someone, a house that I'm familiar with did not flood, certainly did not flood a month ago, did not flood in the 2010 flood, but had a fire and therefore had to, spend the money to raise the house, even though it didn't, as I say, did not flood in the 2010. So that is one of the aspects of it. I agree with you in terms of just adding on and re-adding on and re-adding on. However, I do want to say the city is partnering with the Corps of Engineers to pay, let's see, I would say, I'd have to stop and think, about 80-something% of having people elevate their houses to get out of the floodplain. The only time that I remember that they ever demolished anything was right after the 2010 flood, and that was very, very few residences. In fact, the ones that are going to be eligible to get they're only having to pay 17.5% to have theirs elevated. Now, there are only 35 of them in the city, and there are many, many, many more located in the floodplain than those 35. So but as I say, if you have any kind of substantial damage like a fire where you have to spend a certain amount of money and everything, then you're having to elevate it yourself.
I have a question. Say you were that homeowner where, say, part of your structure burnt and you have to now bring it into compliance. Now, if say it was a person and they're kind of looking at that and they're like, well, I'm not going to do that. At that point, they would just have to kind of sell as is, right?
If they weren't prepared to do that, they would. In fact, we've gotten 50 or 60 calls in the last 2 weeks from people that want to be on a buyout list. They want us to buy their houses to demolish them.
Who pays for the buyout, if I may ask?
In a lot of these are in a creek basin that we've got a Corps of Engineers study underway, and there are close to 100 houses that were identified 2 or 3 or 4 years ago by the Corps of Engineers study that are part of this. It's the exact same program you were just describing, and the Corps pays 65% match, and the city pays the 35% match. And so we've got like 100 houses in the Mill Creek Basin that are in that program. If there's a disaster declaration and you can get FEMA dollars through a FEMA mitigation grant, that's a 75% FEMA grant. And in the case of the 2010 flood, TEMA, the Tennessee Emergency Management, paid 12.5%. So the total cost to the city for the acquisition and demolition was only 12.5%. So there are different programs that have different matches.
Well, but the homeowner did not have to pay anything.
No, we gave the homeowner fair market value. We paid him the full value of his house.
They actually
Franklin has
showed
not
a
done that.
story. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Alma?
I was going to say they actually had a story on that yesterday on the news. A home in Nashville that was demolished, and they bought it. The city bought it, and they're going to use it for like green space or a park or something. So that's happening all over the city.
We've got whole streets that we've bought out, 20 or 30 houses just along one street where we've created long, more linear parks with walking trails and playgrounds. And these are houses that flooded over and over, right? You know, they're
right
back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Our first flood maps were in 1983. So
would it be fair to say that if we left it at 10 years, there would be a higher chance that the city would be in a position of buying out homes than if we reduced it to 5 years? Is that fair to say? Because the likelihood of, if it's at 10 years, the likelihood of the accumulation greater than 50%, it would be more likely for that to occur than if it was at 5 years. And when that does occur, the city is spending money to purchase those homes. Is that fair to say?
yeah, there would probably be a greater likelihood because you're accumulating costs over 10 years instead of 5 years. You don't go back to zero at the midpoint. So if there's a structure that has had multiple flood episodes and the owner is and in the best of scenarios, there's a disaster declaration that makes FEMA money, these FEMA mitigation grant funds available. Then you're looking at 75% federal matches in a good scenario, coupled with a 12.5% state match, which leaves 12.5% for the city. So that would create an opportunity for the city to acquire more of those flood-prone houses because ultimately I call them the subsequent victims. They're people that moved to town and didn't know how high the water was, and they buy a house that, in the case of Ewingville, that backs up to a lovely, wide expanse of green meadow, and all it is floodplain that eventually is going to be lapping at the threshold of your front door. So.
But that should be disclosed at the time that they purchased that house.
It's astounding how often it's not. One of the worst, just in the last 2 weeks, I'm dealing with a homeowner in 7 Mile Creek in Nashville that bought his house in 2018. Didn't have a clue how deep the floodwaters were 10 years earlier. There's a 40-foot addition built on the house without any permits being pulled. And you got somebody new who's owned the house for less than 3 years who's astounded at what a lemon he's bought. And so he's anxious for a buyout. Right now, we don't have a disaster declaration yet. So it could take upwards of 2 years to eventually get his house bought out. The other thing that will eventually begin to affect these buyouts is what the real estate market's doing right now. That dinky little houses that were worth $100,000 in 2010 are selling for upwards of $400,000 in parts of Nashville right now. And I can buy a lot fewer houses when they're $400,000 houses than I could 10 years ago. I drove down Old Liberty Pike a month ago when the water was high. There are brand new houses on Liberty Pike that had 2 feet of water in their garages, which were down the hill from the main part of the house. So.
So is it, so you said assembly is not mentioned that these houses, as they get sold over to say a new owner or in a floodplain, is that just something that's just not required? Or is it just something that's conveniently left out?
I think real estate disclosure, and I haven't read.
It's required. It's like right now, when the maps were changed, or when the designations were changed, mine went from minimal to high, but mine has never flooded. I have a creek behind my house, but it changed and said, and it's like, when you're purchasing a home, that information is available.
And the lender should always check that.
The lender should check it, the realtor should check it, and the insurance company should check it. It is on the tax record. The FEMA
is right.
Is on the tax records.
Right. And when we change, we've reissued maps in recent years, and I get 100 phone calls from people that wanted to know why I mapped them into the floodplain. And I said, no, you've always been in the floodplain. A lot of our newer maps will pick up more creeks that were never modeled and thus never mapped. But once they do get modeled and mapped, and it identifies that the house is in the special flood hazard area, FEMA's description for that term, then you get a call from your lender saying you can either find your own flood insurance or we're going to force place it, and you'll get a bill for the flood insurance on the parcel. If you've bought a parcel that has a house that's high enough to be considered out of the floodplain by virtue of its elevation around the adjacent foundation, it's easy to file with FEMA to have your structure removed from the floodplain, which should save you a lot of money on your flood insurance premiums. I would never advocate that you give up your flood insurance, because that 100-year flood level is not a guaranteed flood level. Floods are all over the place. A month ago, we experienced less than a 100-year flood event. 2010, we had a big flood event with the 18 inches of rain that fell in Franklin and downriver.
Downriver, it was 100-year or worse. In the city of Franklin, it was not. I think.
And in Bellevue, the water was 8 feet above the 100-year level. So it's not a guarantee that you won't flood. That's why we always encourage people to always, if you're that close to the floodplain, you should carry flood insurance. And I did a presentation last week with a Green Urban Lab in Nashville, where I presented information about the number of 10-inch rain events. We have had a 10-inch rain event in Nashville every year for 4 out of the last 5 years, including this most recent one where it rained 10 inches, 8 to 10 inches all over Mill Creek and 7 Mile Creek. Last September, it rained almost 9 inches in Mill Creek and Hurricane Creek over by the airport. In February of 2019, we had the wettest February on record. It rained 22 inches during the entire month of February, including a rain that pushed the Wolf Creek Dam, which is all the way up the Cumberland River, to record levels, record crest levels and record discharge levels. And so in August of 2018, the remnants of Hurricane Harvey, it rained 10 inches in our Whites Creek Basin in North Nashville. These freak events are happening almost every year. And I was astounded when I stood in the parking lot at the Bank of America and looked at the vast expanse of water between there and the Sonic less than a month ago. So these things are going to happen again. If you fancy that these are once in a lifetime events, I think regardless of what you think about climate change, we'll get plastered again. So
yeah. With all that being said, I won't be able to support this ordinance with that change from 10 to 5.
Yeah, and I would also say the same thing, thinking long-term, that the more structures that we do have in compliance, with the increasing number of heavy flood and rain events.
Mr. Chair, it sounded like there was support for part of this ordinance. Did anyone want to make an amendment to the ordinance versus voting on the entire ordinance?
I could support that.
Yeah, I
Could
would
we
like
bring-
to do that.
I think we need to bring it back. Yeah, go ahead, Marcia, please.
Can we bring it back up? Because I forgot. We've talked so much, I forgot what the other part was.
The other part was using an appraiser to prepare an appraised value of the structure as a means of determining these substantial damage values. And we allow.
I agree with that, definitely.
There's extensive guidance in the FEMA documentation about how that process is done. So,
I think if you wanted to, you could make an amendment to remove the section about the substantial improvement, because then that would just revert to what is in the zoning ordinance today with an amendment.
I made the original motion. I moved to amend to remove the 10-year to 5-year portion of this amendment.
And Alma seconds that motion.
So your amendment is to remove that portion of this text amendment from the amendment?
Yes.
Yes, and to defer back to the zoning ordinance.
okay, does anybody have any questions about that motion? The motion is to amend the original motion to approve, to remove the component that addresses the reduction from 10 years to 5 years.
Then abide by the current zoning ordinance.
Current zoning ordinance. Okay. We
And
have a
also,
second by Alma. Go ahead, Ann.
I was just going to say, the zoning ordinance is not the planning commission, it is the board of mayor and alderman, right?
Yes,
So
this amendment will move forward to the board of mayor and alderman for a public hearing and 3 readings.
Okay. We have a second by Alma. Is there any other discussion on the item?
I have a quick question. Amy, did you update the item we're getting the vote for on the services?
Yes, you can make your motions on the surfaces. That's fine.
Thank you.
Or sorry, you can make your votes.
All right, thank you.
I just quickly want to say thanks for the discussion, everybody. That was extremely helpful. I'm certainly not an expert on that subject, and I think that was a really good discussion.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, if there's no more discussion, we'll proceed with a roll call vote. We have a motion for approval of the recommendation to BOMA that's been amended to remove the 10-year to 5-year cumulative timeframe, subject then to the current zoning ordinance. So by roll call vote.
Wait, excuse me, whoops, I've lost it. Have we voted on the amendment to the amendment?
I'm sorry, we have not.
Thank you.
Thank you for keeping me honest. Let's vote on the amendment. That's to remove the 10-year to 5-year period. And so that's what this vote will be on. Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Franks?
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison?
Aye.
Chair Lindsay votes aye. Commissioner McLemore?
Aye.
Commissioner Mann?
Aye.
Commissioner Orr?
Aye.
Alderman Peterson?
Aye.
And Commissioner Williamson?
Aye.
Okay, so the amendment passes, and so now we're back to the main motion. Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Franks?
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison?
Aye.
Chair Lindsay votes aye. Commissioner McLemore?
Aye.
Commissioner Mann?
Aye.
Commissioner Orr?
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. So that wraps up our items on the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Scott.
Scott,
Second, Marcia.
by roll call vote, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good
Good
night.
one.